For every dollar of disposable income you bring home, the average Canadian household owes $1.77 to a lender. That is not a typo. According to TD Economics' analysis of Statistics Canada data from the fourth quarter of 2025, the household debt to income ratio in this country sits at 177.2%, the fifth consecutive quarterly increase, which means most of us are not earning a paycheck, we are renting it from the bank. And here's the part nobody tells you. The day you finally pay off the last of that debt, the mortgage, the line of credit, the car loan, the credit card, your financial life does not just get a little easier. It crosses a mathematical threshold that fundamentally rewrites what your money is doing every single month. This matters right now more than at almost any point in modern Canadian history. Statistics Canada reported that total household credit market debt reached $3.07 trillion in early 2025, with mortgages making up roughly 75% of that figure. And the Bank of Canada has confirmed that roughly 60% of all outstanding mortgages are renewing by the end of 2026, with the typical 5-year fixed holder facing a payment increase of about $5,100 per year. So, while millions of households are about to feel their debt burden get heavier, a smaller, quieter group of Canadians is doing the opposite. They are crossing the line into being completely debt-free, and what happens to their finances on the other side of that line is something almost nobody talks about, honestly. Let us start with where the middle actually is. The average monthly mortgage payment in Canada hit $1,839 in the third quarter of 2025, according to data from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. That figure has climbed 43.5% since the start of 2019, but that number is the average across all existing mortgages, including ones taken out years ago at lower rates. If you bought a home at today's average price with today's rates, your monthly mortgage payment would land closer to $3,476. On top of that, the typical Canadian household allocates 14.6% of every dollar of disposable income to debt service, meaning principal and interest payments combined. So picture a household earning $90,000 in disposable income. They are sending roughly $13,140 every year to lenders, not toward groceries, not toward retirement, toward debt service, year after year for decades. Now let us look at debt by age, because this is where the picture gets sharper. Households where the main earner is between 35 and 44 years old carry the highest debt-to-income ratio of any age group in Canada, 245.8% at the end of 2025. For every dollar of disposable income, those households owe nearly $2.46. The reality check on this number: these are the households in their peak earning years. They are also the ones with young children, the largest mortgages, and the longest list of recurring expenses. They look financially successful from the outside. The data says they are the most leveraged generation in the country. Move up an age bracket. Households aged 45 to 54 still carry significant mortgage debt, and Statistics Canada reports their debt levels actually rose in 2025 because debt growth outweighed income gains. The reality check here: these are people in their 50s. Many assumed they would be coasting toward retirement by now. Instead, they are watching their renewal letters arrive with payment increases of 15 to 20%. Households aged 55 to 64 recorded the strongest growth in average mortgage debt in 2025, rising 6% year over year. Some of that is helping their adult children buy homes. Some of it is investment property. Either way, it means a generation that was supposed to be debt-free in retirement is taking on more mortgage exposure, not less. The reality check. The old narrative, pay off the house by 55, retire at 65, is no longer the standard path. It is becoming the exception. And then there is the smallest, quietest tier of all. According to the most recent Bank of Canada data, just under half of all Canadian homeowners, roughly 1 in 3 Canadian households overall, owns their home outright with no mortgage at all. These are the households we are about to talk about. Here's what reframes everything. When you look at where wealth in this country actually lives, the gap between debt-free Canadians and indebted Canadians is not a gradual slope. It is a cliff. Statistics Canada reports that the wealthiest 20% of Canadian households held 65.7% of the country's total net worth at the end of 2025. with an average net worth of $3.5 million per household. The bottom 40% of households held just 3% of total net worth with an average of $81,650. And the single biggest predictor of which side of that line a household lands on is not income. It is whether they still owe money on the major assets they already own. Think about what happens the month after a typical Canadian household makes their final mortgage payment. That $1,839 a month, or in many cases, $2,500, $3,000, $4,000 a month, does not disappear. It stays in the household's bank account. If that household redirects just the average $1,839 payment into a TFSA every month, contributing $22,068 a year, they would max out the TFSA contribution limit of $7,000 and still have over $15,000 left to put into an RRSP, an FHSA for a child or a non-registered investment account. Compare that to the median Canadian RRSP contribution. Statistics Canada reported that in 2023, the median RSP contribution among the 6.3 million Canadians who contributed was just $3,420 per year. The median TFSA contribution was $6,500. In other words, a debt-free household redirecting their old mortgage payment into investments contributes roughly 6 times the median Canadian RRSP contribution every year. That is not a small advantage compounding over decades. That is a different financial universe. So why doesn't paying off debt feel as transformative as the math says it should be? Part of it is timing. The Financial Consumer Agency of Canada found that 41% of mortgage-free homeowners reported their total debt had still increased, meaning even after the mortgage is gone, lifestyle creep, lines of credit, and credit card balances often quietly fill the space. Part of it is psychological. Behavioral economists call this the hedonic treadmill. The income or cash flow you fought hard to free up gets reabsorbed into a slightly larger life. A nicer car, a cottage, more travel, helping the kids. The relief lasts about a quarter, and then the new normal sets in. And part of it is purely Canadian. In Toronto and Vancouver, where the average mortgage payment exceeds $3,000 a month, and shelter costs eat more than 30% of household income for 1 in 3 families. The gap between being mortgage-free and being mortgage-burdened is not a lifestyle difference. It is a generational difference. It is the difference between retiring at 60 and working into your 70s. There is also a quiet cultural pressure in this country to never feel like you have arrived financially. Canadians who have paid off their homes rarely talk about it. They do not post about it. They do not buy bigger houses. From the outside, their lives look almost identical to their indebted neighbors' lives. The difference is invisible until you look at their statements. So here is the reframe. Most personal finance advice treats debt repayment as a defensive move, something you do to stop the bleeding. The data tells a different story. Paying off your debt is the single largest pay raise you will ever give yourself, and it is tax-free. Here is the concrete number to anchor on. If your household's total monthly debt payments, mortgage, car loan, line of credit, credit card minimums add up to $2,500 a month, paying that off frees up $30,000 a year in cash flow. Pre-tax, that is the equivalent of roughly a $43,000 raise for someone in a typical Canadian tax bracket. You will not get a $43,000 raise from your employer. Not this year, not next year, probably not ever. But you can engineer the equivalent for yourself by being the household that finishes the race instead of refinancing it. So, the action is this. Add up every monthly debt payment you make, multiply by 12. That is your hidden salary, the one you are paying to lenders instead of your future self. Write that number down, put it on your fridge. Build every financial decision over the next 5 years around shrinking it. Being debt-free in Canada is not just a feeling, it is a measurable shift into a different wealth bracket, one where your money finally starts working for you instead of for the bank. If you want to understand exactly how Canadian households actually build wealth from this point forward, the steps, the accounts, the order to fill them in, subscribe and stick around. That is what this channel is here to walk you through.